Are we ready to go? I think we're ready to go.
Oh, yes.
Hello everyone, this is Joseph.
And I'm Pina. Hi.
And we're here to discuss various psychic things and stuff. And Pina and I come from different backgrounds, and we've been discussing things. So I'm going to talk about some of the odd things that have happened to me. And Pina's got some interesting things too, we talked about earlier, and she can discuss them if she wishes or not. Now, what I was mentioning earlier was, I think I was about, did I say what, 13 or 14 years old? Right. And when I reached puberty, of course, I had an interest in girls, which is, from my point of view, that was nice. But I come from an incestuous, abusive childhood. And that sort of stuff leaves its mark. And so here I was around these beautiful girls and the usual things with teenagers. And I felt very stifled in myself. I felt dirty, and I felt completely alien to these people. And that had sort of like a profound effect on me. And one of the biggest effects it had on me was I started to get a voice in my head. And it was very insistent. And it was more like a jingle, nothing big or sinister or scary, but it wouldn't stop. And it would go day and night. In my dreams, it would be there. And it was absolutely awful. It was absolutely horrendous. And after several months of this, I decided that probably the best thing to do would be to kill myself. And so I remember going to bed this particular night and thinking the next day I couldn't do this anymore. Then I had a dream, and in the dream there's like a big, you know, the old dressing tables, and you had like the old mirror on top, right? So there's one of those. And in my dream there was the animal, the llama, was looking out at me. And it had the wise eyes, you know, and it was just sort of staring and looking. And I felt absolutely petrified that these human-like eyes was looking at me. And in my dream, I screamed. And then I woke up and the voice was gone. And it was gone forever after that. And my younger brother, who slept in the same room as me, said that at that night, he heard footsteps going around inside the bedroom. And then he heard me shouting, and then there was a scurrying noise, and that was the end of it. We've also been talking about shamanism, Pina and I, and I've mentioned this on other videos, how shamanism is inherent in many people, in our species, different cultures, how there's a pattern to shamanism growing up. It's accompanied by what you'd only call mental illness, it's accompanied by strange phenomena, by what seems to be really unpleasant spirit activity. Now, one second before I go any further, I'm going to see if this camera's working properly. And look, it is, Pina. Despite the accusations you made about my technological prowess. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had experiences with shadows when you were younger.
When I was younger, I used to see shadows at the windows. We lived in a corner house, and you know, it wasn't lights or cars or anything like that. No one else would see these shadows, and it wouldn't be just one person. It'd be a couple of people that would follow me around the house. So I'd go from one end to the other, and they'd come across with me. And, you know, as we discussed earlier, I had a lot more happening to me when I was younger. I also felt a lot more like I could cope with these sorts of things. Even though that scared me, it didn't spook me like things do nowadays.
Was it exciting in any way?
It was curious. It was curious. It did feel bad.
It did feel bad.
No, it didn't feel bad. It didn't feel bad. It was more of a curiosity that someone was. It was like a game for me. As a
How
kid.
old would you have been?
I would have been about 5, 6 years old.
Did you think this was strange?
I did, but I didn't. But I took it. I don't know. I interpreted things a lot different when I was a kid.
Did you tell anybody?
I told my mother, and she thought I was nuts.
Did it bother her?
I think it did, because she actually went outside. One of the times, she actually went outside and took me with her to prove that there was no one out there.
Maybe to prove to herself too.
There was no one there because Dad wasn't home. So, you know, Mum, at that time, there was 3 of us under the age of 10, and Mum, and we'd stay home a lot by ourselves without Dad being around. And yeah, but Mum used to, because I'd hear things as well.
What sort of thing? Like externally?
Just things around me.
So it wasn't in your head so much
no,
as
I
external.
don't think it was in my head. I mean, there were times there because I had what I would call my imaginary friends as a kid. That I'd play for hours, but I'd have people there too. This is another thing I went through.
Like Happy the Blue Unicorn.
Yeah, like almost like Happy the Unicorn. That's just come to me that I used to spend hours in my room just talking to nobody, and Mum would come in and think that I was just a strange
You said
kid.
she was a very Catholic lady.
Yes, Mum was brought up strict Catholic. You know, I'd get in trouble as a kid if I did anything that was unladylike. You know.
That's hard to imagine, Pina.
Thanks, Joe. But yeah, there was a lot of things that happened as a little kid to me that actually, you know, as a teenager, led me to want to know more.
But how did your mother respond? Did she bring the priest to see you or anything like this?
No, well, she put me in Catholic school, didn't she?
Oh, that would have helped.
Well, that's what ended up happening.
How old would you have been then?
I went to Catholic school when I was 7. Mum put me into a Catholic school.
So that was like, what, just a day school? Or?
Yeah, I went to, and then I had to go with, my grandmother was also Catholic, strict Catholic, so I'd have to go to church with my grandmother.
Did you tell the nuns about your experiences? Or?
No, these were things that I sort of kept to myself. You wouldn't talk about stuff like that, you know, you couldn't talk about ghosts or spirits or I saw something. It's like, it was just, everything was squashed down in my family.
We've discussed though how the psychic sort of side has followed you through now too.
It's followed me through. It's things that I get scared of, Joe. I get scared of things now. I have more fear now as an adult than what I did as a kid. As a kid, I was a lot more courageous. I feel that I was a lot more courageous, a lot more intrigued, you know, and wanted to know more. But as an adult, I think, like we've discussed today, the complications of life sort of cause these fears to develop in us, you know. It's also, you know, we've discussed self-belief, where I keep saying I switch it off and I don't believe in myself. And I think the bottom line is this fear and some of this stuff that I've been taught growing up, you know, being in the Catholic Church. And
now Pina was, well, I met her as a client initially, which is a good friend, but also she was in my psychic sort of class I was doing. And in all honesty, like I've seen lots and lots of people, it was quite extraordinary, some of the things we did. One of them, I gave Pina an envelope, yes? Because every week, just to irritate her, I would make things more and more difficult, because that's the sort of guy I am. And so this particular week, I gave her a sealed envelope, and inside I just put her name, Pina. And I just said, basically, what do you feel, what do you see? Other times I've done things like a cat or, I don't know, another country. And so she basically said, as always, oh, I can't do this, blah, 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 too hard. And as she was talking to me, she was sort of doing what you call it?
Doodling.
Doodling on the envelope. And so she wrote down a name starting with P, of course, and just a few little... And she's first thing you said was, oh, she's a woman, she seems quite nice. And I thought, yeah, that's a matter of opinion, I bet. But anyway.
And she had glasses.
And she had glasses. But as she was talking, I noticed she was drawing this big arrow on the envelope, and the arrow was pointing towards herself. And I thought that was really impressive. So basically, even though consciously she didn't really know, her subconscious knew. I was giving a very, very strong sign of what was going on. And your reaction to that, Pina, was?
I was stunned.
Yes.
I was stunned. I didn't...
In a way, she was suspicious, trying to work out how I'd managed to make her doodle her own stuff. I mean, Catholics, right?
Thanks.
But it was extraordinary, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, it's something I found with learning this is that when you really try too hard,
yes,
you can't grasp it. But when you sort of sit back and you learn to relax a little bit and just go, you know what, I give up, I surrender. That's when it comes.
It's like looking out the corner of your eye. Huh?
It is. It's you're not fighting with yourself. You're not trying to make something happen, and that's what I've learned is that the more I sort of let go of things and become sort of vague and don't try and control it, because I think that's what I try and do is control everything.
Yeah, well, because the world's so out of control.
Yeah, that it does come to me and it flows and and it's that sort of pinching yourself sort of moment, because you sort of think, this is surreal, this is not really happening,
Yes.
this is not really real,
Yes.
this is not really me.
And even if somehow I'd conveyed to Pina that was her name in there, the arrow is so obscure, such a strange thing to
Why,
do.
yeah, why would I draw an arrow towards myself?
And
Like,
the other thing we discussed today was basically, well, we're in Australia, there's bushfires down south. They say that 1.25 billion animals have died. The bacteria in the soil is destroyed. Australia will never be the same again. This is a dreadful time, and we've spent our life in this beautiful country. And in many ways, you know, nature's being destroyed by our species. And I was talking to Pina about how there's still a magic and unknown at the edge of things. At the edge of things, there's a beauty, whether it's psychic phenomena, whether it's dreams, whether it's just odd, beautiful things that happen, whether it's having an open soul, something kind. And to me, that's like the last remnants of nature in us, the last beauty of the world, a world that's been destroyed by greed and evil bastard politicians and businessmen. This beauty here that, like with Pina, I said to her, much to her great embarrassment, that within herself, you know, the psychic ability, the good, kind soul, all of these things, they're just as beautiful and just as important as any other creature in nature. We're still part of it. Right, so what's your next step, Pina, with learning your psychic abilities? I'd be very interested to know this myself, actually.
oh, look, I don't know. At the moment, I've been drawn to botanicals and shamanism, and that's become quite a... I don't know why I started to look at more at the plants and the psychedelic sort of things, because I've had those experiences.
That's South American to a big extent still, isn't
Oh,
it?
look, they are finding pouches with stuff, that's old pouches that have still got remnants of powders and things that they used back in those days.
But you've talked about how afraid you are of other psychic stuff, but you're not afraid of this.
No, I'm not afraid of this. Look, one of my experiences having LSD was kind of spiritual, and I mean, we went to music parties and dance parties, and the music is a universal language, okay, like food and things like that. It's one of those things that everyone understands, okay, and I had an
It worked for you.
It worked for me. I had an experience where I felt like it was magical, spiritual. It was something there through the music. It was speaking to me. My mind was open. It was on a different dimension, and it's like almost like I'm seeking that experience again to set me back on that path.
It's an old sacred experience. And yet myself, psychedelics and everything, all they tended to do was to get me into uncomfortable situations that weren't very good. And I don't like them much. And I use different methods. But if you read history, you go back to shamanic cultures, indigenous cultures, there's been, well, probably because of the connection to the natural world that the West has lost, that connection to, you know, the spirits in plants and trees and lovely things. In a sense, like with peyote and that, it's the spirit of the plant and all that stuff. Now, we're going to have to wind this up in a minute, but as I'm sure you'll all agree, Pina will be a regular guest because she's got some very interesting things to say. And also, she's had a completely different path from mine, and she's taken great courage, and she is very brave. And she's also very gifted. And the thought of her not developing her gift really annoys me. So we're going to try. Hey, Pina.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to use my magic-y thingy, and it doesn't usually work at first, but we're going to say goodbye to everybody for now, and blessings on all of you.
Can you see with my glasses on?
Did I put yours on?
Oh, yeah.
and she's the one using psychedelics. Bye-bye. It still hasn't